Hi folks, my name's Andy Tiplady. This is my good friend Ian Grant.
Hello.
We're part of Bushfire Ministries. And Ian, do you want to explain what the purpose of this video blog is, what we're going to be doing, and over the next few weeks? Do you want to explain a little bit?
So we believe passionately that the Bible shows that we live in end times, and we feel we're part of that generation. We're chosen as part of that generation, as it says in Esther, chosen for such a time as this. And there's a lot of biblical prophecy about the times in which we live. Obviously, to be able to understand it, have insight, we need to listen to the Spirit of God, have revelation, see into the heavenly realms, and understand what God is showing and what He's demonstrating, and what the Rhema word of the Lord is in these times. So these blogs, Andy, are all about trying to interpret the signs of the times of the signs, and really trying to open up some of the really important topics that we feel are vital to the end time church today.
So Ian, what we're trying to do also is bring a prophetic perspective of what we're seeing now. What does it mean? And one of the things we really want to lead into this is, I don't know whether you really know, but on the 29th of November, just outside Galilee, outside the town of Tiberias, the Israeli Air Force launched an attack. Now, they launched an attack in Syria to the south of Damascus. And we are sort of coming together with information of what was actually taking place. We saw, prior to that, over, 300 to 400 rockets being fired from Gaza? And then, I don't know whether you know, but the Israeli defense minister resigned because he saw Netanyahu not responding to this Gaza attack in. And the reason for that is, the fact is, the Mossad, the intelligent part of the intelligence of the army, the IDF force, they have been filming from satellite Iran flying in to Damascus and places in Lebanon 747 jumbo jets loaded with something. Now, we're not told what they are, but because of those satellite images, they put boots on the ground. But on the 29th of November, it's been not reported in the newspapers. You can't pick up a BBC or whatever it is, but they're not reporting this. But for over an hour, the Israeli Air Force bombed just outside of Damascus Syrian positions. I believe there were missiles in. I believe there were missiles. And from the instructions from Iran to fire from over in Gaza, whatever you've got there, whatever missiles you've got there, fire them. Because we want to divert the attention of the Israeli Defense Force, to divert their attention from what we're doing in Damascus and Syria, but what we want to do is to divert it from the Gaza. But Netanyahu knew something, because prior to that, Netanyahu met in Paris President Putin of Russia, and the meeting took around about 14 minutes. Netanyahu walked away from that meeting knowing one thing, that Russia would not side with Israel. The question is why, Ian? Why did Netanyahu know from that minute that Putin was against Israel? And I think I know the answer to that. And the answer is this: it's gas. Because we know that something is going to draw in armies against Israel, and I believe it's their minerals, it's their what's been discovered. And Israel have now discovered they've got one of the major gas productions that they're now supplying, as we sit here, to Europe. What is the major gas supply to Europe before Israel?
Russia.
Absolutely. So now, what are we seeing in? What do you think, from a prophetic perspective, what do you think we're seeing now?
Well, just to enhance what Andy said as well, we've got to remember about the Dead Sea, because the Dead Sea also contains a lot of minerals which contain a huge amount of resource and economic resource for Israel. So Israel is very rich in some vital minerals, resources that are important to the world population.
Yep.
And we also know a couple of other things. We know that Israel has many enemies, and it's surrounded by its enemies. And we know that many of those have very publicly said that they're committed to annihilating Israel.
Can you give us one
Well, Iran, for example,
Absolutely.
totally committed to annihilating Israel. So is Egypt, in the sense that when we go back to before the Six-Day War, if you remember, the then president said that he was totally committed to annihilating Israel and was going to do so imminently.
But I don't think Egypt is going to be a problem.
No, why
I
is
don't
that?
think they are, because they have made some sort of peace deal with Netanyahu. That they're not a threat. But what are we seeing now, geopolitically in Syria? What are we seeing as the major players, and why?
Well, Russia, for example, is obviously a major player. Has backed Syria, backed the so-called government in Syria
Under Assad.
And is increasingly interested in that region, probably for reasons of economy.
So who else is involved in Syria at the moment?
There's Hezbollah, for example.
And who's supplying them?
Iran.
Absolutely. So Iran have become quite a major player in and around Syria with Assad and Putin, with his forces in Syria. So we've got three major players. Now supplying Hezbollah, who are hell-bent on what?
Destroying Israel.
Destroying Israel. But what about the Gaza? What have we seen over the last few months in the Gaza?
What we've seen is a lot of attacks, rocket attacks, going into Israel. That actually we don't see that much in the news. Interestingly, we saw reported on the news about an Israeli unit that got fired on. They lost one soldier, I believe.
But do you know what they're doing there? They're planting bugs. And do you know where one of their bugs has been planted? Outside the leader of Hezbollah in the Gaza Strip. And this is why Hezbollah are completely panicked. They're coming out with these incredible statements. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But they know they're being monitored. They know they're being listened to. They haven't got a clue who's doing it. They know it's the Israelis, but they are literally looking at their friends saying, are you a traitor? Are you a spy? They're in disarray at the moment in Hezbollah, especially in the Gaza. But here's my question, Ian. We're seeing prophetic things that are written in the Word played out before our eyes. And here's my question. Are we seeing Psalm 83 being played out? Or are we about to see Ezekiel 38 or Zechariah 12? Are they three different battles, or are they two? What are we seeing here?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I mean, just to look and put this in perspective, ever since Israel has been reformed in 1948, there have been several wars.
Yep.
And I think it's really important to understand that with each war, which was never done at the initiation of Israel, they did it in defense.
Yep.
Israel has regained territory in every single war of those wars. And I think the important thing is, what we must understand is, what is the total land of Israel? And it's my view that when we look at the Bible, that the land of Israel is what we see in the Promised Land, in terms of the Promised Land. In other words, that Israel was east of the Jordan, the land of what was Bashan. And so it is my view, if we see the restoration of Israel within this prophetic time frame, that there is and must be another war in which Israel retakes even more land.
So my question is this, because this is where a lot of people, I believe, this is my thoughts. I want to invite you to check it out. We're not just saying this, to amuse ourselves. We want to recognize the times and the seasons that we're living in. And we're living in biblical prophecy.
Yeah, amen.
But here's the thing, Ian. In Psalm 83, they already think it's happened. Through what? Can you remember? Through the 1967 war.
Oh, yes, no, absolutely. I mean, there are people... obviously, 67 was a very dramatic, very prophetic war, where, as you know, several nations warred against Israel, and Israel took them by surprise. And interestingly, 6-day war, it was called the 6-day war, 6 days, and then 7th you shall rest.
And what did Israel gain?
They gained a lot of land.
But what's the main thing they
gained? Jerusalem.
Absolutely.
They retook Jerusalem.
East and west.
East and west. And I believe that was a fulfillment of the prophecy we read about given by Jesus in Luke 21. And so these have been strategic, cataclysmic prophetic fulfillments. And I think when we look at what's going on now, and in the light of what you've been talking about, quite clearly, I mean, it's my view that Psalm 83, Zechariah 12 cover the same scenario.
Absolutely right. That's what I believe as well.
You know, some people have said, oh, well, could this have been fulfilled in 1967? We can discuss that. And of course, we then look at Ezekiel 38:39, which in our view, I think we'd agree, is probably a different war.
Yeah.
So what we're saying here, I think, and you need to check this yourselves, what we're saying here, there seems to be some events that are taking place right now that may be heralding another Middle East confrontation.
Absolutely. See, this is where I think we're on the brink of. I think we're on the brink of some sort of war breaking out in and around Israel. Israel's border, they feel threatened. Do you know there is over something in the region of 10,000 fully trained, fully armed Hezbollah troops, both in Lebanon and in Syria, right on their borders, right on the northern border of Israel. And there is high alert amongst the Israeli Defense Force that are saying we need to station up these our troops up on these borders because something's about to happen. But here's my thing. In Psalm 83, we see a number of people mentioned that are literally ganging up against Israel.
That's right.
And it's incredible, Ian, when you look at it, geographically, they're all their surrounding neighbours. All around Israel, surrounding neighbours. And the Bible is quite clear in Psalm 83. It says the Moabs, the Jebels, the Ammons, the Amaleks, the Philistia, the Tyres, Assyria, they're all joined. And they say in the verse, they say in Psalm 83, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. That is their plan. And we see that the forces now coming in and around Israel have one thing. They want to cut off Israel.
Yeah, that's right. And indeed have been proclaiming that ever since Israel was reformed. We just were speaking about President Nasser of Egypt, and you can hear them on YouTube videos. You can hear that Nasser spoke viciously against Israel and committed to the annihilation of Israel. And that has been repeated. Presidents of Iran have said the same. We know that that has occurred in the Gaza Strip amongst the president there. So there has been this commitment ever since the Reformation of Israel against Israel and with its determination to destroy it. One of the things I'd just like to raise is actually history here, because you will often hear them saying that in terms of history, that actually the way that they speak about Israel is it never really existed in the first place.
Yep.
And of course we know that that's not scientifically or historically sound.
It's not at all.
And there are many, many documents that demonstrate this. And it's just important to remind ourselves why Israel changed its name, or got its name changed from Israel to Palestinia. And that was simply, as
it's the Romans. It's the Roman general. The Roman general Hadrian named the land of Israel Palestinia.
Because he hated the Jews.
Yep.
So we know for a fact that actually preceding AD 125, Israel was a land. Of course it was part of the Roman Empire, but it was recognised as Israel and home of the Jews.
Yep. And isn't it interesting that it was the British government that then adopted the Roman name of Palestinia to what we know as Palestine.
Yeah, that's
right. And they base it on a people called the Philistines. Now, it's interesting that the Philistines here historically were not land grabbers. They were seafarers. They made their land around ports and cities on the coastline because they were seafarers. They never ever came in to Israel apart from against David and Saul that we see in the Bible. But historically, they were mainly seafarers and warriors from the sea. They were a bit like Vikings, our European Vikings. But they wanted land, but they didn't take Israel.
It's interesting.
It's really interesting. And it's funny how Mark Twain, in around about 1903, visited the land of Israel. And he called it a dust heap.
Yeah, that's
because there weren't anybody there. There wasn't anybody inhabiting. So drawing it back to now, do we think we're going to see Psalm 83. I believe we are.
Yeah, and so do I. I think there's another Middle East confrontation that's going to occur pretty imminently. And interestingly, also within that, we haven't yet mentioned this, Andy, is of course Damascus.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Isaiah 17 has never been fulfilled.
No.
And we are actually seeing the pounding of Damascus right now, and it's my view,
the Israeli Air Force, just to the south of Damascus.
So it's my view that Damascus, because it's written in the Bible, will be wiped out, Andy.
In like that.
In an instant.
Absolutely. So what is likely to do that, Ian?
Well, I think that will be a response. I mean, you know, it's speculative really, but it's a response by Israel to a further attack, as we see within Psalm 83 and Zechariah 12.
Yeah, with that, you know, because I believe Psalm 83 exactly what you said. That Psalm 83 and Zechariah 12 are they're the same battle. Mm. When you put them side by side, they're the same battle. But the one difference that is incredible between Psalm 83 and Ezekiel 38, it's in Psalm 83, the people of Israel win the battle.
Yeah.
They physically, when you have a look at this, they physically win a battle. And it results in Ezekiel 38, where it says, let me just find it and quote the fact that it says that the time in Ezekiel 38, it says that the people dwell safely in where? Israel. They dwell safely and they have no walls.
That's right. Very important.
It's an incredible point, because, you know, is there peace in Israel now?
Well, no. And they've got a wall running through
absolutely.
the West Bank.
And surrounding the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
There's walls up. I mean, we've been there. I've seen them.
Yeah.
So has Ian.
Yeah.
So, do you think then Psalm 83 has, from the war in 1967, the retaking of Jerusalem, the eastern part of Jerusalem, back into Israeli hands, do you think that war created total peace?
No, I don't.
Absolutely. I don't either.
Absolutely not.
So what's your reasons for that?
Well, I mean, I think that for a start, we have seen constant battles and conflicts since 1967. We see them almost on a daily basis surrounding Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, where it borders with Israel. And we've heard and we've discussed earlier in this blog about the fact that the countries surrounding Israel are committed to its destruction. So, and I agree with you that I think there are different circumstances behind the battles which we talk and see about in Psalm 83 and Zechariah 12 to what we see in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Yeah. And as also, I do believe that to fulfill that battle, you must see Israel in its entirety back to the land it originally had when Moses went into the promised land. Yeah. And we've not seen that.
No, we haven't seen that.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think though, Ian, let's just go to the Bible. Ezekiel 38 verse 11, it says, you will say, I will go up against a land of unwalled villages. Yeah. I will go to a peaceful people who dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, having neither bars nor gates.
Yeah.
Ian, do we see that in Israel? As you walk the streets of Jerusalem, are we seeing this?
No, we're not. Absolutely not.